Good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Connie Bell, and I am responsible for leading Teleperformance Global Incident Response and Fraud Analytics team. Many of you know us as SCIRT. Today, we are here with two of my favorite executives, Scott Barli, Chief Operating Officer for TP USA, and Cynt Marshall, CEO, Dallas Mavs, President and CEO of Marshalling Resource Consulting. Black at TP wanted to bring together these two leaders to discuss overcoming challenges and dealing with life's unexpected events. Our hope is to accomplish this by helping you to learn and understand from others' personal and professional journeys, such as Cynt Marshall and the leadership of Scott Barli. Trust me, you will leave this podcast motivated to tap into your inner strength and power. First, let me introduce our very talented leaders. As I stated earlier, Scott Barli is our Chief Operating Officer. He oversees the effective management of Teleperformance organization in the United States. If you have not met this gentleman, you are missing out. He is intelligent, focused, driven, while at the same time caring and empathetic, having the ability to understand the world of all our employees' point of view. Scott holds more than 20 years of executive experience in customer experience, digital transformation, B2B care strategy and operations, sales support, international product implementation, consumer technical support, and operations support. That's a mouthful. Scott will take the lead on interviewing Cynt, our special guest. Now, Cynt Marshall has been a dynamic force in inclusion and diversity within the Mavericks organization and over 36-year career at AT&T. Imagine that. When Cynt was hired as a new CEO of the Mavs in March of 2018, she set her sights on a culture of transformation. Her vision for the Mavericks organization was to become the NBA standard for inclusion and diversity, and brought transparency and trust and her value-based leadership style that evolved the company's culture in the first 100 days. Cynt's notoriety began many, many years ago as a young officer at AT&T and grew exponentially when she served as the Senior Vice President of Human Resources and the Chief Diversity Officer at AT&T. There, she was responsible for identifying and developing leaders, aligning employees with the company's visions and priorities, overseeing major business unit HR support, performance development, employee engagement, and skills transformation initiatives. Cynt also led a team that created a world-class diversity and inclusion culture, landing AT&T in the top 3 on the Diversity Inc.'s 2017 top 50 list of companies. She also spearheaded work that for the first time placed AT&T on the Fortune 100's best companies to work for the list in 2017.
And that's enough.
Well, I have to tell you one more thing about Cynt. Not only has she been a recipient of several honors and awards, in her new book, You Have Been Chosen, and I must say a must read. She details the unlikely things for which she has been chosen for, from a difficult and abusive childhood to a full scholarship at the University of California, Berkeley.
Go Bears!
To an executive suite at AT&T. Along the way, not only did she endure several miscarriages, one that nearly killed her, and the loss of her newborn Special K, the book also details the adoption of her 4 wonderful children, her successful battle with stage 3 colon cancer. I am excited to tap into this talent we have here today. Scott, I'm sure you have your first question for our esteemed guest.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr. Bell.
I'm so excited to get a chance to hear from you and learn from you. And you've had an incredible career. You joined this call and you could just feel the energy. I'd love to know what drives you. What are the passions that drive you towards that energy?
Oh my goodness. First of all, it's just so good to be here to hang out with you. And of course, I know Dr. Bell and Scott. I've just heard some amazing things about you and your leadership and your passion for people. And truly, that is what drives me. We are probably driven by the same thing. It is all about people. I often say people matter, and that's all that matters. So when I get up in the morning, people say, what keeps you up at night? Well, nothing really keeps me up at night. I stay up like all night. But it's about what really gets me up in the morning. And it's people. I am driven by just making a difference in people's lives, just making the environment better for them, whether it be at home or at work or at church or in the community. I just truly believe that we are placed on this earth to be our brothers and sisters keepers. And so we get to do that in a variety of ways. And so I'm just driven about the mission of people, the mission to serve. And wherever the Lord places me, I'm ready to go and carry out that mission. So it's about the people.
Awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. So in your
Yes.
career, Connie mentioned the great opportunities and surprises that you were given in your career, but who helped you along the way as you worked through that journey? I'm sure you had a lot of support.
Oh, I had a lot of support. So Connie mentioned my book that was released in September. You've Been Chosen. And the way I summarized that book, 200 plus pages, is about how God and great people always show up in my life. I have been surrounded by a tremendous village. My parents left Birmingham, Alabama when I was a baby and moved to California to a public housing project. And I had teachers, different educators, community people, track coaches, people that just helped me along the way through an abusive situation, going back to school as a junior in high school with a big brace on my nose where my father had broken my nose, and three teachers and a principal embraced me. They knew it wasn't normal. Come back head cheerleader, I'm cheering, with the big silver brace on my nose. And so they embraced my mom. They wanted to know what was going on. And then they knew my mom had a vision for her kids to go to college, graduate from college, and the village embraced us. And the rest is history because they got me involved in all kind of stuff. I got my full scholarship and on and on and on. Same way in my career, mentors, sponsors, people that helped me understand kind of what I needed to do, and some people who had their ideas of what I didn't need to do, but that's what they thought. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of that. But it's just people who show up, and if you're open to it, they can help you. And I was. I was always taught to be open and to let people help me and to listen to them. And so that's kind of, how I got to this point. It's just people helping me along the way, different mentor sponsors, and they looked like everybody. A lot of the people who helped me and who mentored me along the way, Scott, they look like you. And so we have to appreciate people like yourself who care about other people and who care about people who don't look like them and who will stand up for them. I wear this upstander bracelet all the time about standing up for people and being there for them. So that's been the story of my life. I've had great people show up.
That's
So
awesome.
Sid, you touched on something really key when you talk about people who help you that don't necessarily look like you. And can you talk a little bit about the importance of having advocates? So for an ERG like Black at TP, it's not only about engaging our Black employees, but talk about the importance of engaging advocates and that people who don't necessarily look like us.
Oh my goodness, we need advocates, we need our allies, we need for two reasons. We need a different perspective because sometimes we can get bogged down in our own stuff and our own cultures, and some of us we're all different, but we some of us have similar backgrounds. Well, you need people who have their own cultures and their own backgrounds to help you see some things that maybe you don't see, and then to help advocate for you, with others who may have their own opinions or biases or stereotypes. When you have people who are right in there with you, who know you, who understand what you're about, they can go and speak in places and speak in rooms that you're not in. And so often discussions, critical discussions, are happening in places that you're not in. And you want somebody who can step up and say, you know what? No, I know what's on her mind, or I know what she's about, or I know what that is. And so we need to embrace that. That's authenticity, So, and I can give you, I can give you chapter and verse of situations where I had people step up for me when other people were even saying stupid stuff like, she needs to change her hairdo. I mean, just crazy stuff, or not understanding, the culture or the colloquialism and where I come from and all that. And so you need somebody who can be there and who can fight your battles, but who can also mentor you and help you understand the cultures. I often talk about the difference of diversity and inclusion. Diversity being invited to the party, inclusion being asked to dance, and inclusion being about helping people understand the culture and the tables they're at. You need somebody to help you understand this new table that you're sitting at, this new environment that you've been in, because you just don't know it. And so that's why we all need each other. We all need the allies. We all need to be there for each other. I'm on this big thing now about being there for my Jewish brothers and sisters. And so just being able to speak up about anti-Semitism and all that. And sometimes it catches people off guard. Well, you know what? I need to stand up right now. There's some things that people need to hear from me and not them. So I'm big on the allyship and the upstanders.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's awesome. So I heard a story that when you got the phone call from Mark Cuban, you didn't know who he was.
Oh, don't judge me, Scott. I did not.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
I'm
So
glad.
you moved into that role, and
Yes.
obviously you had a huge culture change that you had to implement.
Yes.
As you kind of hit your first 6 months, what were some of those challenges? What were some of those things you did? What were some of those, that pushback that you got and how you overcame it?
Oh, I love that. I love that. So when I joined the Mavs, of course, it was after a 36-year career, has started my own company. Get this call from this wonderful man who I truly did not know. But he wasn't like trying to phone a friend to help him out. He was really trying to get someone who had experience in transforming cultures. And so when I got there, I talked to a few people, spent a few hours in the conference room. And before I had my press conference, I laid out a 100-day plan, a vision, and a set of values. And I said, this is where we are going to start. And I communicated it to the team. And then I went and met with the media because it was important for me to tell the team first, here's who I am. Here's what I'm about. So I gave them me just up close and personal. I was very transparent about my background, who I am, where I come from, what I personally value. And then I laid out a vision for the Dallas Mavericks. And this was it was the end of February 2018. I said by 2019, we will set the NBA standard for diversity and inclusion. And so I focused on that because I believe in the business case. If you focus on that, you get that right. And I'm talking about the comprehensive agenda, talent, suppliers, purchasing, community. I mean, if you focus on that, you will win the war for talent. You'll be profitable. You'll have innovation, creativity, and all that. So I believe in that business case. So that was the vision that we set out. And then I laid out a set of values. I said, from this day on, this will be values-based employment. And our values spell crafts: character, respect, authenticity, fairness, teamwork, and safety, both physical and emotional safety. And maybe at the very end of the call, I'll close with the character story that I told my employees to really make it stick. So I let them know this is what we're about, and we're going to perfect our crafts. And then I laid out a 100-day plan that had 4 major parts to it. Model zero tolerance. So really focus on compliance, making sure that we had the infrastructure in place to create a speak up culture, that people understood what was expected of them, code of conduct, all that. So model zero tolerance, a Mavs women's playbook, because it was just not a place, the Dallas Mavericks was not a place that, in my mind, was friendly to women. It wasn't a great place to work for women. So we needed an agenda to expressly elevate, educate, empower, and encourage women. And then cultural transformation, just totally looking at our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, our reputation, our agenda for women, just the inclusion, because we lead with inclusion. It's not just about counting the numbers, but it's about making the numbers count. And then operational effectiveness, just basic things you need to run a business: market-based compensation, gender pay equity, performance reviews, business planning process. And so it's 200 initiatives. I got everybody engaged them. And then I said, okay, we're going to start with one-on-ones with every single employee. And then we're going to diversify this leadership team that did not have any women or people of color on it in permanent positions until I got there. And then now my leadership team is 50% women and 50% people of color. And that happened within the first 90 days. And so that's what we did. It was a recipe around vision, values, a 100-day plan that everybody engaged in, one-on-ones, and a diverse leadership team. And so the NBA has given out an Inclusion Leadership Award for the past 2 years. Well, twice they've given it out, and we've won it both times. So we're kind of achieving that vision of setting the standard. And yes, you're right. There were some challenges. There was pushback. I had one guy tell his team not to listen to anything I had to say because I'd be gone in 90 days. He said it was a big PR move. I didn't know anything about basketball. Certainly this Black woman couldn't come in and lead an NBA team. And I had to end up calling him out on that because I noticed his people, they wanted to talk to me, but they were just kind of, standoffish. And so I asked what was going on, and they were honest. And I just called him in and I asked him about it, and he admitted it. And so he said I'd be gone in 90 days because I didn't know what I was doing, and there's no way Black woman without any basketball experience, no less, could come in and do it. And so he was the one gone, and by the end of the year he was gone, and I'm still here, and it's 4.5 years later but he opted out. He opted out. He self-selected. He decided he didn't want to be with the program that we had in place. He didn't want to live up to the values, and he didn't want to be in a place that was led, by a Black woman, I guess. And the whole thing is kind of crazy because we're actually friends now. I love that guy. I loved him then. Honestly, I love that guy. It was very different for him. Even in 2018 and even now in 2022, there's some people who have just never worked for a woman, let alone a Black woman, which is crazy to me, but it is what it is. And so he self-selected out, but he's still a good friend.
Wow. Sound like you're a woman of action. We were talking earlier about how Scott being a man of action, being at TP in a little over a year and a half, and have made some phenomenal changes
I love
to the way that we do business that support our employees. So hats off to both of you guys. You talked a little bit about in that story, when you think about, a lot of people think that you have to know the business to run the business. But essentially, it sounds like there are just some critical leadership styles or leadership capabilities that you need to have to run any business. Can you talk about some important capabilities that we need to have more so than functional type of abilities or skills that we need to have to run our businesses?
Yes, I think, my boss promised me that he would teach me the business of basketball because I was concerned about not knowing the subject matter. I knew communications, telecommunications, all that. But he said, no, you will learn the business of basketball to the degree you need to know the business of basketball. I need a leader. And he was right. And so I practiced a few things. I practiced the 3 L's of leadership and then all in leadership. And I'll describe those very briefly. So the 3 L's I learned a long time ago. I learned when I was 21 years old, supervising long distance operators at AT&T, fresh out of college. Okay, 21 years old. I got there and I told them, I don't know anything about this. And they agreed. They knew I didn't know. I said, but I do know how to serve. And I know my job as a leader is to serve. So I believe there are 3 things that if I do them extremely effectively, I'll be a great leader. And that is to listen to the people, learn from the people, and love the people. And I mean, listen at a level where I can even hear what they're not saying. So, meaning I have to really spend time with them. I have to listen to understand, listen to process, not just listening to respond or just listening for some piece of data that I need, but truly listen at a level where I care about them because I'm listening because I know I serve these people. And so I need information to serve them. And that's what my one-on-ones were all about, getting to know the people. So listen to them, learn from them. when I was a director, so made my executive level at AT&T, I had an assignment installation and maintenance district. So all the, the phone people out in the, kind of out in the field and all that. I went to pole climbing school. So out there online somewhere is a picture of me up on a telephone pole with a hard hat on, some boots, a big belt, all that, really small back then. Okay. And the union actually took that picture. Some of the union leaders took that picture because they were just fascinated and delighted that I would take the time, I'm 3 levels up from these people, that I would take the time to understand what these employees and these technicians deal with every day. But I wanted to learn their job. I wanted to learn what I thought I needed to learn and then what they wanted me to learn, because that's how you develop empathy. That's how you can really serve. That's how you can provide the resources, because you can feel it, because you've been there. And then to love the people. And that's the part that usually catches people off guard. It's about loving people and not loving the employee, but the person. Loving that person who gets up out of bed in the morning, the baggage they have, the cultures they have, the dreams they have, the issues they have. We have to love those people. And so the person that gets up out of bed in the morning, that's the person who I want to walk into my doors, who I want to show up on the screen, not some person who goes and find a phone booth, if you can find one these days, and put on a big cape with an M on their chest or a TP on their chest. That's not who you want. You want that person, that authentic person who got up out of bed in the morning. And then we as leaders have to meet them where they are. And that's how you love the person and not the employee. So if I do that, I'm good. And then my all in leadership is to lead with intent, lead with inclusion, lead with insight, and lead with inspiration. If I practice my 3 L's and my all in leadership, I'll do a great job.
Thank you.
Well, Cynt, we have a common background. So when I graduated high school, I started digging ditches for Ameritech at the time.
Wow. Did
And
you really?
I put myself through school in the installation and repair department. I climbed poles for a living.
Oh my goodness.
So
Oh my goodness.
I know the class you're talking about very well.
Oh my goodness. What city were you in, or state?
Detroit.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. That is a tough job. I think it's one of the best jobs. It's a tough job. And if you're trying to lead people that do that, you better understand that job. The challenges are real, and these people are committed. They're out there and all that bad weather. I mean, it's an incredible service job. And so I really want to know it. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think, the way you speak about having the one-on-ones, meeting with the employees, understanding what their concerns are, having the love for them, it's what we're working on every day. And, I think for us at TP, what I focus on with my leaders is make decisions based on what's best for our employees, what's best for our clients, and what's best for TP. And if you're taking all 3 of those into account, every time you make a decision, we're going to back you. You're going to make the right decision every time.
Yeah, it'll be the right one. It'll be the right one.
So as we think about what we're trying to do here, which is really be that catalyst for change at TP, what do you think is important for us? What do we need to focus on?
I think we need to focus on, first of all, the time that we are living in. I mean, we're living in some divisive times. We have some crazy stuff going on, and our employees don't leave that at home. That comes in the door with them. And so I think we have to be very aware on a daily basis on what's happening in the environment, and give people time to decompress and to process it the way they need to process it, and have resources and tools available to them. I think we definitely need to think about how we are serving individuals. And so that's where the employee resource groups really come in, because they can help you keep your finger on the pulse of people, what their needs are. And employee resource groups, I mean, they're there, they serve the business. We serve them, but it's a two-way street. And so to really tap into them and have kind of that two-way dialogue, and then to understand that the world is different. kind of as we come through this pandemic, the world has changed, people have changed, the future of work has changed, the way we work has changed. And so we've got to stop. This is what's really top of mind for me right now, is to just really stop and figure out, what do people want? And people want different things. And so how can we respond to people who need to work in a very different way? Because we're getting the most out of them. I think people have realized, I think, there's some bad things that came out of the pandemic, obviously around deaths, but I also think there's some very good things that have come out with it. People have gotten very in touch with, most people have gotten in touch with who they are, what's important to them, and they know how they want to work, and they want that flexibility. And so we have to figure out how to make that happen. And so I'm relying on my employee resource groups a lot to help me stay in touch with the people. My favorite quote is a Teddy Roosevelt quote, or at least it's attributed to Teddy Roosevelt. It says, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." And that's kind of where I am right now. And I think as leaders, we have to be in that caring space to make sure we are meeting the needs of our people. Because if we meet those needs, we'll continue to have our businesses soar.
Yeah, I think that people are expecting us, or the leadership of organizations, right, to kind of look at, here's what happened in the pandemic, and offer them different ways to work for us, right? Because what the pandemic did show us is there are alternative ways to the way we were doing business, and so they're looking for us to, how can we continue that, or not, right? But how to meet them, where they are, based on what their expectations. I want to take you back to something earlier we were talking about, when you were talking about the people who helped you along the way. And we've kind of had our sister talks, at your house, and we've talked about the idea of lifting as you climb.
Yes.
Right. And so can you talk a little bit about, because we'll have a lot of our TP leaders that will be listening to this podcast. And so what do you feel is their responsibility? Because a lot of times we say, well, if somebody doesn't come to me and talk about the opportunity they want, then I don't have an obligation. But I think that they, some of our debates is that, I'm responsible for giving them an open space or a safe space to come, right, and help lift as I'm climbing to lift other people. Talk a little bit about what you think our expectation is as senior leaders to lift as we climb.
That's it. That's exactly right. Our job is to lift and connect, to lift people, because we're in a space that most people aren't in. Our view is a very different view. The view from the top is different. And you see a whole lot, and you can't expect people to have that view because they're not there. I mean, they just don't have that big picture that we have. And so we see a lot of things that we need to share with people. And then we need to bring them up and put them in spaces where they get an opportunity to see some of that. Even if they don't see it on a daily basis, it's about that exposure. And people don't know what they don't know. So to wait for them to come and ask for it is kind of crazy, because they don't know what to ask for. We know what's there. We have that view. So I am all about mentoring programs. I'm about sponsorship too. Sponsorship programs where you take people and say, okay, to me, it's like you have your coaches, you have your trainers, and then you have your agents. So that's kind of like in my sports world. To me, sponsors are agents. They're basically saying, this person is ready, put them in, coach. Like, let's get them on this team, let's make this happen. And so we have a responsibility, I believe, as leaders, to mentor people, to sponsor people, to make sure we can coach and aid in their development, and then to make sure that the rooms are diverse at every level. If they are not, shame on us, because we have the big picture. We have all the steps on the ladder, and we put people on those steps. They can't just walk in. There's nobody who can just walk into TP and walk into Scott's office and say, I'm your next director over here, and I start tomorrow. Now, Scott might think, okay, well, that'd be nice, but that's not getting ready to happen. Okay. Because somebody's got to sponsor that person. You got to make sure that person is qualified. The job has to be open. I mean, we know that there's so much. Okay. So the person just can't step in, but we can pull people up. We can put them in developmental roles. We can have them network with people. We do all of that, and we owe it to the corporation, to the enterprise to do it, because it goes back to that business case. If we want to be profitable, then we have to have all of the different minds, backgrounds, etc., at the table. That's our job as a leader. Nobody else. We can't blame anybody else if it's not happening.
Thank you.
So that is my 2 cents on that.
All right. My 2 cents.
We own it. We absolutely own it.
Yeah. Great.
But once we do it now, then the person has to step in there. They've got to be able to receive the coaching. They've got to put in the hard work. They've got to show up where they don't want to show up. And, I always say that you must be present to win. So when the opportunities are created, when people tell you to show up for networking or tell you to show up for a special project, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm not interested in that. No, you got to show up, because you must be present to win. So it's a two-way street, but we have to open it up.
Awesome. Well, as we think about wrapping up, what else? What else do you want our team members to know about you, and either professionally, personally, that really can inspire them?
Here's what I want them to know: that I sit in the seat that I'm in now, and it's a pretty high seat, and I've been extremely, extremely blessed. But I got here because there were people in my life every step of the way who were there for me, who showed up, who opened up opportunities, mentors, people who told me. I'll never forget. I worked for this guy years ago. I was about 23 years old, Norm McBride. And he asked me one time, he goes, Cindy, what do you want to do next? And so I was in my second job in the company. And I said something real stupid, okay? But I believed it at the time. I said, Mr. McBride, I had my head down. I was working on my little engineering charts. I said, Mr. McBride, my job is to do my current job and deliver results. And your job is to worry about my next job. He looked at me, he says, Cindy, he called me Cindy back then. He goes, Cindy, come back to my office. And Mr. McBride spent 2 hours with me, showing me the picture of he painted the picture of the whole company, helped me lay out a career plan and all that. And so then after he finished and I was leaving his office, he said, and Cindy, don't ever just put your career in somebody else's hands to own it. You have to own it too. We do this together. But he spent that time with me because he knew I didn't know any better. And he helped me literally lay out a career path that led to a lot of success in my career. And so what I would say is we all have a role to play in the success of other people's careers, in our own, and in the success of the company. And so what we have to think about every day is, what role do I have to play? Because at some point you're going to be in that game, and you got to be able to look out not just for yourselves, but for somebody else. I truly believe that we are our brothers and sisters keepers. And so we have to be there. Goes back to being allies and upstanders, and not just in the company, but also in the world, that we all need each other. All of this really is about people. And so I got here because people invested in me. They took time with me. And then there was a network of people all around me. And then I gave back. And so I think that's what is expected of all of us, to invest and then give back. And yeah, you'll get some returns on that investment. So that's my 2 cents. Invest and engage.
I love it. I think I said at the top of the meeting that we were going to be embraced by 2 phenomenal leaders. And as you were talking about your second rotation, I thought about that. Do you guys know you're both educated engineers?
That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, I ended up changing my major, and then I ended up being an engineer with the company. So it was just in me to do that. Let me just add one more thing about, I coined a statement a long time ago. So I definitely want people to think about this. Is sometimes the light at the end of the tunnel is a train. Bad things do happen to good people. And sometimes there's just adversity and things that we have to face. And then, you could either have the pity party or do the woe is me, or you can realize that, yeah, sometimes the light at the end of the tunnel is a train, and open up to people and let them help you back up so you can get back on track. And you all talked about it, the different, the adversity that I faced, then the stage 3, one lymph node away from stage 4, cancer diagnosis, the death of a daughter, you just name it. Okay, husband with brain damage, just all that. Every step of the way, I could actually point to an actual hand that lifted me back up. And so as we think about all the things that are going on in this world, let's be that hand to lift somebody else back up. There's so much good and great stuff going on right now and more to do, but there's also some bad stuff. But the good and the great outweigh the bad and the ugly. And we can get through it if we just take some action and be that hand for somebody. And sometimes you might have to be the one to accept that hand, which is what has happened to me in my life. A person who is always like to be in control. I'm type A, if y'all didn't figure that out. But every now and then you just got to let somebody else, you got to open up and let somebody else pick you back up and help you get back on track. And we got to be there for each other and accept that sometimes, we do fall down, but we are down, but not out. We can always get back up.
Nice. Wow.
Awesome.
I can't thank you both enough for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. I truly appreciate it. I know our employees will appreciate it as well. Scott Cynt kind of gave her last words. Are there any last words that you have for us that you'd like to close with?
No, I just truly enjoyed this conversation and learning from you. It's always interesting because our journeys parallel each other in so many ways. And it's, having those strong people around you, for me, strong women throughout my career, throughout my life that helped guided me. And I just really excited to see the next chapter for the Dallas Mavericks, for Teleperformance, and for our culture of both groups to just continue to flourish.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. It was so great to hang out with you. Thank you, Dr. Bell.
You're welcome.
My sister, Connie.
I love you, my sister Cynt. That's my 2 cents.
Love you too.